My wife and I bought our house about 5 years ago. It's a new house, and we become friends with many of the neighbors. But my wife has fallen in love with my neighbor. I got revenge. Let's start all over again, but for now, don't forget to like the video. Share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to stay updated with our latest stories. It all started 5 years ago when my wife Diane and I bought the house on Willow Lane, a brand new build with crisp white siding and a porch just big enough for two rocking chairs. The kind of place where you imagine growing old together, watching the seasons change in the comfort of your own slice of the world. We move in on a Saturday, the air thick with the scent of fresh-cut grass and new beginnings. Our neighbors came by with pies and handshakes. The Thompsons to our left, the Garcias across the street, and then there was him, James. He lived next door in a house nearly identical to ours, except it had a dark blue door. Early 40s, tall, the kind of guy who looked like he just stepped out of a catalog for expensive whiskey. Retired military, now working as some kind of consultant. Polite, but with an intensity in his eyes that made you feel like he was always measuring the distance between words. Diane met him first. I was inside unpacking boxes when I heard her laugh. That bright, unfiltered sound she only made when something truly delighted her. I peered out the window and saw him leaning against their shared fence, grinning at something she'd said. Harmless, I thought, and for a long time it was. We became friends with the neighborhood, hosting barbecues and holiday parties. James was always there, always lingering just a little longer when Diane was around. I noticed the way his gaze followed her, the way he'd find excuses to touch her arm when he laughed. But I trusted her. I trusted us. Then, one evening, I came home early from a business trip. The house was quiet, but Diane wasn't there. Her text said she was out for a walk. Something about the way the message was phrased, too casual, too quick, made my stomach tighten. I stepped onto the back porch and saw them. They were in James' backyard, standing close beneath the string lights he'd hung for some party or another. Diane's head was tilted up toward him, her fingers brushing against his chest. And then he kissed her, and she kissed him back. I should have stormed over there, should have thrown a punch, screamed, demanded answers. But I didn't. I just stood there, frozen, watching the woman I'd loved for 25 years fall into someone else's arms. The worst part? She looked happy. I slipped back inside before they noticed me, sat at the kitchen table, staring at the wedding photo hanging on the wall, wondering how the hell we got here. That night, when Diane came home, she was glowing. She kissed my cheek like nothing was wrong, humming as she poured herself a glass of wine. Good walk? I asked, my voice steady. Perfect, she said, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in years. I nodded, sipped my coffee, and said nothing. But I knew, and revenge, cold, calculated, and deserved, was already taking shape in my mind. I didn't sleep that night. I lay beside Diane, listening to the soft rhythm of her breathing, my mind racing through memories like a detective piecing together a crime. Had there been signs? Little moments I dismissed? The way she started dressing nicer for neighborhood gatherings, the extra time she spent gardening near the property line, the sudden interest in whiskey, his drink. I got up before dawn, careful not to wake her, and brewed a pot of coffee strong enough to keep my hands from shaking. The kitchen was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator. Outside, the first hints of sunlight painted the sky in pale blues and pinks. What now? Confrontation was the obvious choice. But the thought of it, the tears, the denials, the ugly unraveling of our marriage made my chest ache. No, I needed to be smarter than that. If Diane wanted to play this game, I'd play it better. I took my coffee to the back porch and sat in one of those damn rocking chairs we'd bought with such optimism. James' house loomed next door, dark and quiet. What does he have that I don't? It wasn't about looks. I'd aged decently, kept in shape. Money? We were comfortable. No, it was something else. Something the way he carried himself, like he'd lived a life full of stories I'd never hear. Diane had always been drawn to mystery. The sliding door opened behind me. Diane stepped out, wrapped in a robe, her hair tousled from sleep. "You're up early," she murmured, pressing a kiss to the top of my head. I forced a smile. "Just wanted to watch the sunrise." She leaned against the railing, looking out at the yard. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then, softly, "It's beautiful, isn't it?" I studied her profile, the curve of her lips, the way her eyes lingered just a little too long toward James' house. "Yeah," I said. "Beautiful." The plan begins. That afternoon, I call an old friend from college, Mark, who ran a private investigation firm. "You sure you want to do this?" he asked after I laid out the situation. "I need to know how far it's gone," I said. He sighed. "All right, but once you know, you can't unknow it." I hung up, my jaw tight. Diane was out, probably with him, so I did something I hadn't done in years. I went through her phone. The texts were still there, unsent in her draft folder. Last night was deleted. I can't stop thinking about deleted. What are we doing? Sent. My stomach turned. Then a new message popped up from James. Tonight, same place. I put the phone back exactly where I'd found it. Game on. Mark's investigator arrived the next day. A woman named Carla, who looked like someone's friendly aunt but had the sharp eyes of a hawk. She set up in my home office with a laptop and a pair of high-power binoculars, sipping coffee like she was here to watch a baseball game. "We'll know by tonight," she said. I tried to act normal around Diane. Made her breakfast, asked about her plans for the day. She was distracted, her fingers tapping restlessly against her coffee mug. "Just running errands," she said. "Might stop by the bookstore." I nodded, pretending to believe her. By noon, Carla had already confirmed what I already knew. Diane wasn't at the bookstore. She was at a boutique hotel 20 minutes away, one of those places with velvet couches and dim lighting. James arrived 10 minutes after her. Carla handed me a pair of earbuds connected to a receiver. Audio feed from the room next door. I hesitated. Did I really want to hear this? Then Diane's voice came through, breathless, laughing. "We shouldn't be doing this." James' reply was low, confident. "Then why do you keep saying yes?" I yanked the earbuds out. Carla didn't flinch. "You okay?" I wasn't, but I also wasn't done. The first move, that night, Diane came home with flushed cheeks and a story about running into an old friend. I smiled, kissed her forehead, and said, "Glad you had fun." Then I went to the garage and pulled out the bottle of 18-year-old scotch I'd been saving for our anniversary. Time to make a new friend. I waited until Saturday, neighborhood barbecue at the Garcias. The kind of event where everyone brings a dish, kids run through sprinklers, and men stand around the grill pretending to know more about smoking meat than they actually do. Diane wore that sundress I liked, the one with the faint blue flowers. She'd taken extra time with her hair. For me, I doubted it. James arrived late, as usual. He had that easy swagger, like the world moved at his pace. He nodded at me, clapped me on the shoulder like we were old buddies. "Hey, neighbor." I smiled. "Got something for you." I pulled out the scotch. His eyebrows lifted. "That's a serious bottle. Special occasion." I said, pouring 2 glasses. He took a sip and made an appreciative noise. "Damn, that's smooth." I leaned in, lowering my voice. "Listen, I've been meaning to talk to you. Diane mentioned you got some connections in consulting. I've got a project coming up. Could use a guy like you." His eyes flickered toward Diane, then back to me. "Yeah, big contract. 6 figures." I swirled my glass. "But it's in Denver. 6-month gig." He hesitated. "That's a long time." I shrugged. "Money's money." Across the yard, Diane laughed at something Mrs. Garcia said. James watched her, then downed the rest of his drink. "Let me think about it," he said. I clinked my glass against his empty one. "No rush." The trap set. Later, as we walked home, Diane slipped her hand into mine. "You and James seem cozy." "Just business," I said. She squeezed my fingers. "Good." I wondered if she meant it. 3 days passed. I watched James like a hawk watches a field mouse, patient, calculating. He avoided my gaze when we crossed paths getting the mail. Diane hummed more than usual, her phone face down on the counter at all times. Then, on Thursday evening, my phone buzzed. "James, let's talk about Denver." You free for a beer?" I smiled. The meeting. We met at O'Malley's, a dim-lit bar with sticky floors and the kind of regulars who've been nursing the same drink since noon. James already had a bourbon in front of him. I ordered a water. "You don't drink?" he asked. "Not when I'm working." I lied. He leaned in. "So, this Denver thing." I spun the tale effortlessly. A corporate client, a rushed timeline, a need for someone with his exact skill set. I named a salary that made his fingers twitch against his glass. Thing is, I added, they need someone on site by the 15th. His jaw tightened. 2 weeks. You in or out? He exhaled, then knocked back the rest of his drink. In. I raised my water in a toast. To new opportunities. He didn't smile. The unraveling. Diane knew something was wrong the moment I walked in. "You're home late." "Met James," I said, hanging up my coat. "He's taking that job in Denver." Her wine glass froze halfway to her lips. "What job?" "The one I offered him." I sat beside her on the couch. He seemed excited, said it was time for a change. The color drained from her face. "When does he leave?" 2 weeks. I reached for the remote. "You okay?" "Fine," she whispered, but her hands were shaking. The next morning, I found Diane sitting at the kitchen island, staring blankly at her coffee. She hadn't touched it. The steam had long since faded. "You're up early," I said, pouring myself a cup. She didn't answer at first. Then, softly, "Did James seem strange to you last night?" I sipped my coffee, letting the silence stretch just long enough. "Not really." "Why?" Her fingers traced the rim of her mug. "It's just, he never mentioned Denver before. Maybe he didn't want to jinx it." I leaned against the counter, studying her. "You two talk often?" Her eyes flicked up sharp. "No, just neighbor stuff." "Right." I left it there. The best lies are the ones people tell themselves. The first mistake. That afternoon, I accidentally left my laptop open on the dining table, an email draft visible. Subject: Denver housing options. Body: James. Attached are those short-term leases we discussed. The high-rise has great views, but the brownstone's closer to downtown. Let me know what you prefer. I walked away, pretending to be on a phone call. When I returned, the laptop was closed. And Diane was gone. The confrontation. I found her in James' driveway, her voice low but urgent. She hadn't seen me yet. "You're just leaving?" she hissed. James ran a hand through his hair, agitated. "It's a good opportunity, Diane." "And us?" "There's no us," he snapped. "It was fun." "That's it." She took a step back like she'd been slapped. That's when I cleared my throat. Both froze. "Sorry to interrupt," I said, holding up Diane's phone. "You forgot this." The look on her face, guilt, shame, fury, was worth every second of hell I just walked through. James paled. "Man, this isn't what it—" "Save it," I said, and turned to Diane. "We'll talk at home." For the first time in years, she had nothing to say. The walk back to our house was silent. Diane's heels clicked against the pavement like a metronome counting down to disaster. I held the door open for her, the same way I had for 25 years. Some habits don't die, even when you want them to. She sat on the edge of the couch, back rigid, hands folded in her lap like a defendant awaiting sentencing. I didn't sit. I stood by the fireplace, staring at the wedding photo above the mantel. Younger us, hopeful us, foolish us. "How long?" I asked. She exhaled shakily. 3 months. The number shouldn't have mattered, but it did. 3 months of lies. 3 months of her slipping away while I pretended not to notice. "Do you love him?" Her head snapped up. "No." "Then why?" Her fingers twisted together. "I don't know." I almost laughed. The great unraveling of our marriage. And the best she could muster was "I don't know." But then she said, "I think I just wanted to feel seen again." And just like that, my anger cracked. We talked all night. Not the screaming match I'd imagined, but something quieter, Messier. She cried. I didn't. Not yet. She told me about the loneliness I hadn't noticed, how I buried myself in work after retiring, how we become roommates who shared a bed but not a life. James had been a spark, nothing more. A terrible, selfish mistake. I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered. But you did. She nodded. Can we fix this? I didn't answer, because for the first time, I wasn't thinking about revenge. I was thinking about the woman in front of me, flawed, sorry mind, and wondering if we still knew how to love each other. The next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee and burnt toast. Diane stood at the stove, still in her robe, poking at a blackened slice with a spatula. She turned when she heard me, her eyes red-rimmed but clear. I forgot how fast our toaster burns things. A peace offering. A terrible, hopeful little gesture. I took the spatula from her hand and scraped the char into the trash. We need a new one anyway. She watched me, barely breathing. Does that mean? It means I'm not ready to give up yet. The relief on her face almost broke me. We started small. No grand gestures, no empty promises, just showing up. I put my phone down during dinner. She stopped scheduling errands during our old Sunday drive time. We even planted a new rose bush by the fence, our hands brushing in the dirt like teenagers on a first date. James left for Denver without saying goodbye. Diane didn't mention him. Neither did I. It wasn't perfect. Some nights, I'd wake up sweating, imagining her in his arms. Some mornings, she'd catch me staring at her phone when she left the room. The trust wasn't gone, just bent like a bone healing wrong. One evening, I came home to find her crying in the shower. I didn't ask why, just turned off the water and wrapped her in a towel. She pressed her wet face to my chest. I'm so sorry. I held her tighter. Me too. Our 26th anniversary arrived. No fancy dinner. No fanfare. Just us on the porch at sunset, sharing the last of that 18-year-old scotch. Diane swirled her glass, watching the amber liquid catch the light. Remember our first apartment? That awful shag carpet. You cried when you saw it, and you spent a month on your knees tearing it out. She smiled real and warm. You've always fixed things for me. I took her hand. This time we fix it together. The first whisper came from Linda Thompson at the neighborhood potluck. I heard James is back from Denver, she said, handing me a plate of deviled eggs with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Early termination, they say. I kept my voice casual. That's so. She leaned in, her perfume thick as syrup. Funny, he left right after your little marital trouble. Across the yard, Diane laughed at something Mr. Garcia said, oblivious. My grip tightened on the plate. Careful, Linda. I said mildly, eggs are slippery. He showed up 3 days later, tan and tired looking, unloading boxes from a U-Haul. Diane froze when she saw him through the kitchen window. The mug she was holding hit the floor, shattering. I knelt to help pick up the pieces. We knew this would happen eventually. Her hands shook as she gathered ceramic shards. I don't want to see him. Then you won't. I took the fragments from her. But we're not hiding. The neighborhood noticed. Of course they did. Sideways glances at the mailbox. Abrupt silences when we entered rooms. Even the Garcias' usual 4th of July invite never came. Diane started wearing sunglasses on walks. I started mowing the lawn at 7 a.m. just to glare at James' darkened windows. Then came the note in our mailbox. Adulterers aren't welcome here. Diane crumpled it, her face pale. Who would? Doesn't matter. I took her hand. Let them talk. But the poison had already seeped in. That night, she dreamt of James and woke up screaming. Sunday morning, I put on my best shirt and walked Diane to church, the one we hadn't attended since the scandal. Heads turned as we took our usual pew. Pastor Rick's sermon was on forgiveness. After the service, Linda Thompson blocked our path. Well, isn't this brave? I smiled. Linda, you've met my wife, Diane? 26 faithful years together. Well, I glanced at Diane's guilty flinch, then back to Linda. 26 years, anyway. The gossip's mouth opened. Closed. Diane squeezed my arm, Her voice clear as bells. "We're renovating the guest room. Linda, you should come see it sometime." As we walked away, Diane whispered, "Guest room?" Figured we'd start actual renovations tomorrow. I kissed her temple. Time to rebuild everything. The doorbell rang at 8:17 p.m. on a Tuesday. Diane was elbow deep in paint samples for the guest room. Seaside mist versus morning haze when the chime echoed through the house. Her fingers froze mid-swatch. I set down my coffee. "I'll get it." James stood on our porch for the first time in months, his military straight posture slightly slumped. He held a bottle of wine, her favorite Pinot, like a white flag. "We need to talk," he said. Behind me, Diane's sharp inhale told me she crept into the hallway. I stepped aside. Living room, 5 minutes. James sat stiffly on the couch we'd bought for our 10th anniversary. Diane hovered near the fireplace, arms crossed. The silence thickened until James finally spoke. "I came to apologize." He looked only at me. "To both of you." Diane's voice was steel. "Why now?" "Because the whole damn street thinks I'm some home-wrecking villain." His jaw tightened. "And because I was..." I studied him, the way his fingers dug into his knees, the sheen of sweat at his temple. This wasn't a smooth operator from a barbecue. This was a man who'd lost something. "You don't get absolution," I said quietly, "but you can leave town again." James stood, nodding. Then he did something surprising. He pulled an envelope from his jacket and handed it to Diane. "Read it later." She didn't take it. "What is it?" "Proof I'm not the only snake in this garden." His eyes flicked to me. "Ask your husband about the private investigator." My stomach dropped. Diane turned to me, the question in her eyes sharper than any accusation. After James left, we sat at the kitchen table, the unopened envelope between us like a grenade with the pin pulled. "You had me followed?" Diane whispered. I rubbed my temples. "Only after I knew. And before, I trusted you." The words tasted bitter, right up until I couldn't. She stared at the envelope for a long moment. Then, to my shock, she slid it back to me. "Burn it. I don't care what's in there." "Diane, you watched me destroy us and still chose to fight for our marriage." Her hand covered mine. "That's the only proof I need." For the first time since the affair came to light, I cried. The envelope burned in our fireplace on a Wednesday night. Diane struck the match. I watched the edges curl black, the secrets inside turning to smoke up the chimney. Neither of us spoke until the last ember died. "Do you still think about him?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. She didn't flinch. "Yes." The honesty hurt more than a lie would have. "Not the way you think," she continued, staring at the ashes. "I think about how easy it was to fall, how I didn't even notice I was slipping." She turned to me, her eyes glistening. "Do you still watch me?" I thought of the way I'd noted her phone face down at breakfast, how I'd timed her grocery runs last week. "Yes." "We can't keep doing this." The rules of war. We made a list, actual pen and paper, like negotiating terms after ceasefire. No secret checks, no phone snooping, no just passing by her book club. One shared calendar, no unaccounted hours. Weekly honesty hour, no topic off limits. It felt juvenile, necessary. The first honesty hour was agony. "When you hug me," I admitted, "I wonder if you compare the way we hold you." "When you bring me coffee," she whispered back, "I wonder if you're checking for guilt in my face." We sat with the wounds exposed, learning to breathe through the sting. The turning point came in an unlikely place, the DMV. Diane forgot her new license required 2 forms of ID. The clerk was firm. "Come back tomorrow." I saw the panic flash across her face, the unspoken terror that I'd think this was an excuse, a cover, a lie. Instead, I slid my ID across the counter. "We'll wait together." For hours on those plastic chairs, sharing a bag of vending machine peanuts, remembering how to laugh at the absurdity of life. On the drive home, she reached for my hand. "I forgot how patient you are. I forgot how you crinkle your nose when you laugh." The ghost between us quieted for the first time in months. Progress isn't linear. When James' name appeared on a neighborhood group email about street repairs, Diane spent the next morning scrubbing the bathroom tiles raw. When an old college friend texted me about a guy's trip, she accidentally knocked over my wine onto my phone. We didn't pretend it was perfect. We just added a fourth rule. When we backslide, we say out loud, I found Diane sitting on the floor of our walk-in closet, knees pulled to her chest, holding a tiny yellow onesie I hadn't seen in 15 years. The air left my lungs. Why now? I managed to ask, lowering myself beside her. She ran her thumb over the embroidered ducks along the collar, a gift from her mother, never worn, because we've been digging up all our other ghosts. Her voice was raw. This one deserves air, too. We'd buried the miscarriage in 2009 beneath a mountain we'll try against, and it wasn't meant to best. Never spoke of it after the first year. Now here it sat between us, as real as the day we'd lost it. That night, we did something we'd never allowed ourselves. We talked about her. Claire. Diane whispered the name we'd picked in secret. The name I didn't know she still remembered. She'd be starting high school this fall. The grief hit like a freight train. I buried it under work promotions and home renovations. But Diane, she carried it silently all these years. You never said, you stopped crying before I did. She pressed a onesie to her face, inhaling the faded scent of hope. I couldn't bear to remind you. The truth cracked me open. We hadn't just lost a child. We'd lost each other in the aftermath. At 3 a.m., we drove to the all-night Walmart, the same one where we bought pregnancy tests all those years ago. Diane walked straight to the gardening section and picked out a young magnolia sapling. For Claire, she said simply. We planted it at sunrise in the corner of our yard where the morning light hit first. No speeches, no tears, just our hands covered in dirt, finally tending to grief we neglected for so long. As the sun rose, Diane leaned into me. James wasn't the first person I ran to, you know. No. There was a guy at the gym in 2012, and that contractor who redid our kitchen in 17. She said it matter-of-factly, like listing grocery items. Nothing happened, but I thought about it. The confession should have hurt. Instead, it felt like the first real honesty we'd shared in a decade. I almost kissed Linda Thompson at the Christmas party in 15. I admitted. Diane snorted. Her? Really? And just like that, we were us again, flawed, scarred, but fighting. Diane threw up on a Tuesday morning. Not the delicate, maybe it's food poisoning kind, but the knees on the bathroom tile. Gut-wrenching heaves I hadn't heard since 2009. I hovered in the doorway, towel in hand, our shared history flashing between us in the silence. It's not, she gasped between waves, what you think. But when the urgent care doctor returned with the results, her expression shifted from clinical to astonished. Mrs. Calloway, your HCG levels are consistent with early pregnancy. The room tilted. Diane's fingers dug into my arm like I was the only solid thing left in the universe. That's impossible, she whispered. I'm 53. The doctor smiled gently. Improbable, not impossible. We'll need an ultrasound to... Diane fainted. The obstetrician's office smelled like antiseptic and dread. Diane gripped my hand as the wand moved over her abdomen, both of us staring at the static-filled screen like it might reveal the secrets of the universe. Then, a flicker, a heartbeat. Well, hello there, little fighter, the tech murmured. Diane made a sound I'd never heard before, half sob, half laugh, as tears streamed down her face. I counted the thundering pulse on the screen. 147 beats per minute. Strong. Steady. Alive. How? I choked out. The doctor shrugged. Sometimes the body resets. After years of thinking it couldn't happen, the stress relief of reconciling, the weight loss from your renovation projects. She smiled. Life find a way. In the parking lot, Diane sat frozen in the passenger seat, hands pressed to her flat stomach. We'd gotten rid of all the baby things. I reached for her. We'll buy new ones. Reality set in that night. I'll be 70 when they graduate high school, I whispered into the dark. Diane turned toward me, moonlight catching the silver in her hair. And What if we're not enough? What if my voice broke? What if we lose this one too? She guided my hand to her abdomen, her touch sure for the first time in months. Then we'll survive it together. No more secrets. No more running. The ghosts of Claire and James and all our failures hovered at the edges of the room. But beneath my palm, a new heartbeat thrummed, insistent, undeniable, ours. At dawn, Diane padded barefoot to magnolia tree we'd planted for Claire. She pressed her forehead to its slender trunk. "You're going to be a big sister," she whispered. When she turned back to me, the morning light caught her face in a way I hadn't seen since we were newlyweds. Radiant, terrified, hopeful. "Guess we're rebuilding more than just a guest room," I said. Her laughter carried through the neighborhood, scattering the last of our ghosts like dandelion seeds in the wind. Linda Thompson struck at the worst possible place, the PDA bake sale. Diana just set down her famous lemon bars, the ones with a delicate crust I'd watched her perfect over 3 sleepless pregnancy insomnia nights, when Linda's voice cut through the chatter like a scalpel. "A baby? At your age?" She said it loud enough to turn heads, her casserole dish clutched like a shield. "Isn't that risky?" Diane's hand went instinctively to her still flat stomach. "Modern medicine is amazing, Linda." "And the father?" Linda's eyes flicked meaningfully toward the exit, where James had been spotted earlier. "Are we certain?" "Enough." My voice surprised even me. Low, lethal, the tone that used to make junior officers snap to attention. The gymnasium went silent. Linda paled, but doubled down. "I'm just concerned, given the circumstances." "The circumstances," I said, stepping between her and Diane, "are that my wife is carrying my child. And if you so much as whisper otherwise, I'll remind everyone here how your famous caramel apples gave half the soccer team food poisoning in 18. A shocked titter ran through the crowd. Linda's mouth opened. "Actually," a new voice cut in. Mrs. Garcia, of all people, stepped forward with a plate of churros. "My niece had geriatric pregnancy at 51. Perfectly healthy boy." She patted Diane's arm. "You'll want ginger tea for the nausea, Mija." The spell broke. The bake sale resumed. Linda melted into the crowd, but the damage was done. Diane lasted until we reached the parking lot before collapsing against the car, shaking. "She'll tell everyone. They'll all think." "Let them." I cupped her face, thumbs wiping away tears. "We know the truth." She gripped my wrists. "What if the baby hears?" The raw fear in her voice undid me. I knelt right there on the asphalt, pressing my ear to her abdomen. "Hey, kid, your mom's a warrior. Your dad's too stubborn to quit. And the world can go to hell if it doesn't like our family." Diane's laughter was wet, but real. They're the size of a blueberry. "They can't hear you." "Then I'll say it again every day until they can." The note appeared in our mailbox that evening, and signed, but unmistakably Mrs. Garcia's stationery. "Book club at my place Thursday. We read romance novels and trash talk Linda. No men allowed. Diane held it to her chest like a lifeline. "I think we just got adopted by the Garcias." I kissed her forehead. "Told you magnolias bring good luck." That night, Diane did something extraordinary. She posted the ultrasound on Facebook. "Baby Calloway arriving February." "Yes, we're shocked too." "No, we don't care what you think." The comments flooded in. Some cruel, some kind. James liked the post without a word. Linda? She unfriended us before dawn. Small victories. The first clock came at 3 a.m. Diane's scream ripped me from sleep. I flipped on the light to find the sheet soaked crimson, her face bone white. The ambulance arrived in 6 minutes. I counted everyone. In the ER, a doctor with tired eyes said words that turned my veins to ice. "Placenta previa. Severe hemorrhage. We need O-negative blood now." The hospital was out. I was halfway to the blood bank when the elevator doors opened to reveal James holding a duffel bag, still in a security uniform. "Heard the call on my scanner," he said, rolling up his sleeve to reveal a fading tattoo of his blood type. "ONG. Where do I go?" Every cell in my body screamed to refuse. But Diane's voice echoed in my head. "You'd really let me die to spite him?" And I pointed to the nurse's station. 3 hours later, the doctor emerged smiling. She's stable, baby strong, and your friend donated enough blood to save a small army. Not my friend, I muttered. James just shrugged from his plastic chair. Don't mention it. But I had to. Why? He studied the vending machine like it held life's answers. Because I owed her. Because you would have done the same. Because his voice cracked. Because maybe this erases one shitty thing I did. The fluorescent lights hummed. Somewhere down the hall, a baby cried. It doesn't, I said. I know. We sat in silence until sunrise. Diane woke to sunlight streaming through hospital blinds, her hand instinctively flying to her belly. Still there. I whispered, pressing a kiss to her four-taped wrist. Thanks to James. Her eyes widened. What? I told her everything. The blood, the waiting room, the unspoken truce. She cried silently, the monitors beeping a steady reminder of how close we'd come to losing it all. I want to see him, she said finally. Diane, not for me, for you. She gripped my hand. You've been carrying this hate like it could protect us. It can't. James stood awkwardly in the doorway until Diane patted the bed rail. Come see your handiwork. He froze at the ultrasound screen, the tiny, thriving silhouette. Jesus, it's really a miracle? Diane smiled weakly. Yeah, but not yours. A laugh burst out of him, startled and genuine. Fair enough. I expected jealousy. Instead, watching them, the woman I loved and the man who nearly destroyed us, I felt something unexpected. Pity. James would never know this kind of love. Not really. Thank you, I said, the words ash in my mouth. But we're done after this. He nodded, backing toward the door. Tell the kid. Hell, tell him whatever you want. As he left, Diane tugged a bracelet from her wrist, a cheap plastic thing from a long-ago carnival. Give this back to him. Why? So he knows it's really over. I chased James down at the parking lot. He turned, expecting a punch. Instead, I pressed the bracelet into his palm. She kept it? His voice was raw. Not for the reason you think. I stepped back. Now get out of our lives. For the first time, I believed he actually would. Diane went into labor during the first real snowstorm of the year. The roads were slick with ice, the wind howling like a living thing as I white-knuckled the steering wheel toward the hospital. Diane panted through contractions, her fingers crushing mine every time another wave hit. You're doing amazing. I lied through my teeth, watching clock. Just breathe. I'll breathe when you learn to drive faster, she snarled. We made it with 12 minutes to spare. Claire Elizabeth Calloway entered the world at 4:03 a.m., squalling and perfect, with 10 fingers, 10 toes, and a shock of dark hair just like her mother's. Diane sobbed when they placed her on her chest. I sobbed harder. She's here. Diane whispered, exhausted and radiant. She's really here. I kissed Diane's sweaty forehead, then our daughter's tiny fist. Worth the wait. We expected solitude, just us in the quiet hum of the maternity ward. But at dawn, a nurse peeked in. You've got visitors. The entire neighborhood stood in the hallway. Mrs. Garcia held a tray of tamales. The Thompsons' teenage son, the one who'd keyed James' car after the bake sale incident, hovered awkwardly with a stuffed elephant. Even Linda lurked at the back, clutching a store-bought card like a peace offering. We voted, Mrs. Garcia announced. Turns out fresh life beats old gossip. Diane, ever gracious, waved them in. Linda hung back until Diane fixed her with a look. Well, aren't you going to meet your new neighbor? The woman actually teared up as she peered at Claire. She's beautiful. I know, Diane said, and for the first time in a year it wasn't tense. We brought Claire home to a surprise. The magnolia tree, now wrapped in twinkling lights, its bare winter branches studded with dozens of tiny handmade ornaments. Welcome home, Claire. Read a banner strung between our porch and the Garcias. Diane pressed her face into my shoulder as I carried the car seat up the walk. When did you? Wasn't me. I nodded toward the Thompsons' house. where Linda was hastily retreating behind her curtains. Our daughter slept through the whole thing, oblivious to the small miracle she'd wrought. That night, as Diane and Claire dozed, I found an envelope taped to our blue front door. No stamp, no return address, just a single key, the kind that opens a padlock, and a note, gone to Alaska, left something for Claire in the garage. Don't open it till she's 18. Gee, I almost threw it out. Almost. Instead, I tucked it into Claire's baby book, right beside her ultrasound photo. Some questions are better answered later. At 2 a.m., I found Diane rocking Claire by the nursery window, the magnolia lights casting soft patterns across their faces. "Can you believe it?" she murmured. "After everything, we got this." I wrapped my arms around them both, watching snowflakes melt against the glass. The tree outside stood tall and unbroken, its roots digging deep into the earth beneath our home, the home we'd almost lost, then fought to rebuild, just like us.